Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes, Jamie Noodles, McLennan, a little Jerry's, I think, emailing. Jerry's got some takes he wanted to send in, right? He's a busy guy. He is summering. You know, we all like to summer, right? He likes to vacation. He's got a busy fall coming up. So Jerry with a couple of emails and a couple of takes later in the hour. Frankie Corrado is going to be a part of the show later. We look forward to that. And Brad Treliving coming up here in a moment. We haven't spoken with Brad in quite some time. So there's a lot to get into with him, including, I guess we asked him how he thinks the press conference went. Not sure I've ever asked someone involved with a press conference how they think the presser went.
Did you see a tweet from a certain gentleman?
Which one was that? Did I miss it? Who sent something in?
Strutty sent something.
Strutty, of course, with his press conference in Toronto. I know.
I saw the announcement. I saw the announcement of the press conference, and then I saw the tweet from him going, "Toronto loves," whatever he said. Toronto loves
a press conference, man. We do. We're big on press conferences here. We're really good at it.
Oh, I was dying laughing when I saw. He just can't help himself.
Cannot help himself, man. He cannot help himself. He jumped right on that, and it was a cool scene down there. I saw Dougie Gilmore and Wendell Clark were there, which is really cool. And Dougie had the alumni jacket on. Looked like $1 million in the front row. I couldn't tell if Wendell had his alumni jacket on. I'm not sure if he did. I don't want to shortchange him on, I think, what is an elite style move by Doug Gilmore. If Wendell did it too, shout out to Wendell. But the idea of rocking the alumni jacket, you know, at the press conference, that is just a phenomenal play.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love it out of Doug Gilmore. It was so great. And it was just a cool scene. Like, everyone was there. Matthews gets the C, and that Tavares, again, handled it very, very well. It was interesting. Brad Treliving was up there doing, you know, all this speaking and kind of representing the front office. It wasn't Shanahan. Berube wasn't up there, right? It wasn't Keith Pelly. You know, it was an MLSE thing. It was the GM of the Leafs and the two players. And
I like that.
Yeah, I think that's, why not, like, just make it basic. The direct players involved. Who's involved? Yeah. These three guys. Let them get up there and explain what's going on. And
it's summer, and here's the GM. You're right. Like, if there's more bodies, then it's like, okay, well, we got it. We didn't hear from that guy. We didn't hear from Shanny. Well, Keith Pelly's got to weigh in. And then, like, instead of going, you know, John gets to talk, Auston gets to talk, Tree gets to talk, and there's reaction. And to me, I think they did it perfectly. It was a celebration. There was no black cloud over it. There's no question marks. Like, we're not sitting here, whatever it is, 6 hours later going, boy, did he look pissed? Or, you know, did this guy look uncomfortable or whatever? It could have been. Like, I think there could have been a layer if it wasn't pulled off masterfully. There could have been like an uncomfortableness, but I didn't sense any of that. I thought it was just, it was done perfectly. And it all starts with John Tavares and the way he handled himself.
Yeah, exactly. He's got to be at the forefront of it, and he was. And I guess it kind of marks the beginning of a new season. You know, I think officially the new season begins on July 1st, and obviously they made signings and all of that. Yet by July 1, you know, the dust is still settling on what had happened the previous year, right? You're still kind of recapping what was going on. And there's still time to do that. But I think, as you expressed, you know, last hour, it did feel like an appropriate time in between, you know, the end of the playoffs, July 1, the craziness of all that, what's going to come a month from now when they show up and get back on the ice. It's kind of a perfect middle ground where you make an announcement like this. And I'm interested in getting Treliving to kind of explain, you know, what this represents. Is this a new start? Is this a new era? Because I'm not sure how that can be the case when Matthews has been here for 8 years, right? And John's been here for 6, and Tavares is still here. You know, like, I know there are new players, there's a new coach, but for Auston, it's an adjustment. It's certainly something new for him, and it'll be something new for Tavares. But it's not like he's new to the market. It's not like he's new to the room.
You know, could it be as simple, and we can ask Tree, like, could it be as simple as, hey, like, you're our best player, you know, you're our star, like, this is all, like, this is your team. It's all on, you know, success or failure is you're the figurehead of it. Right. Instead of spreading it out, you're our guy. Like you know,
how are you supposed to interpret this, Auston? I guess, right? Like, if you're, and we'll ask Brad that. Like, what did you want him to take from this in terms of the messaging? Right. What does it mean? You know, other than the honor of being the captain, obviously, and the responsibilities that come with that. But I think you're onto something there. Is it a deeper deeper meaning than that. Like, you got to take on more responsibility. You got to be the man. Everything's about you. Where does it end? Where does it start?
Well, the two biggest significant changes, I mean, Tanev signing, you got some players coming in, but are Craig Berube coming in, and now Auston Matthews is the captain of your team. Like, is that the message you want sent? Obviously, not is that. That is the message you want sent. Yeah. They've done it. But what is the significance of it? Is it basically saying to Auston, like, sink or swim behind you? You're the guy leading us into battle. Now, it's not 91. We can't defer to 91 anymore. Everyone's behind you. It could be a strong message from the organization and from Brad Treliving and Brendan Shanahan saying, you're our guy. Sink or swim with you, lead us to the promised land. Like that,
which is the way it should be. With or without the captaincy, it should be anyway with him. He's your best player. He's the highest paid player in the league. It's interesting, like the core four stuff. And I know, Brad spoke of it last year where he wanted to break away from that, and it was about the Maple Leafs. And I understand why he wants that to be the case, and I would understand why a lot of them would want that to be the case. And I'm sure there are a lot of times where the core four stuff has been draining or has been a nuisance, probably for all the players involved. Yet I also think it's collectively put up a shield for a lot of players individually at times, where it's not. And Matthews has probably benefited from that more than anyone else because he gets lumped in core four, yet he really is separate. They're all great players. But Auston is on a different level. He's won a Hart Trophy. He wins. He is the best goal scorer in the world. It is indisputable. Like, nobody is close to what this guy is and what he represents. And again, he gets lumped in at times, core four, where really it is Auston. Like in Edmonton, Draisaitl's phenomenal. He might be the second best player in the world. But McDavid's the guy. It's McDavid. It's exactly. And it's Sid. Gino is a great player, an all-time great player. Sid's team first. I think the same thing applies here with Auston. Here is the general manager of the Maple Leafs joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Here's Brad Treliving. How you doing, Brad?
I'm doing good. How you doing today, guys?
We're doing well. Thank you for doing this. Obviously, the press conference, we've been talking a lot about it today. We were talking a lot about the news breaking a couple of days ago in terms of what came out of this, and Noodles just brought it up, the meaning behind this and the messaging towards Auston. Can you take us through that? Like, what did you want him to take from this when it was told to him, you're the new captain of the Maple Leafs?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great day. And listen, there's a different responsibility. I don't want to overblow it with the wording but there is a weight that comes along with wearing the C and some responsibility. But as we've talked through this process, the one thing, that Auston knows and we've reiterated to him is, Auston doesn't need to change. This isn't something that he's going to wake up tomorrow and has to be a different guy. We felt it was the right time for this because of what Auston is and what he's becoming and what he's become. And to me, even another step that he can take. And, it just became more evident to me. Like I said, I've had a chance to, watch all these guys, Auston and the group, as an outsider for many years. And it's now just over a year that I'm sort of behind the curtain with them. And the growth that I've seen over the course of the year, the way people follow him, the respect that he has, the way he really just goes about his business. I said in the press conference today, you all get to see, really Auston from 7 to 9:30 on game nights. What the public doesn't get to see is, the other 22 hours in the day and how he prepares and how he looks after himself and, the presence he has in a room. And today was really that step to sort of turn things over to him, that he can, expand his wings, if you will, a little bit and really kind of officially lead the group. And that's not to say that John wasn't or anybody else wasn't, or that the responsibility is solely on his shoulders. But I just felt in talking, internally with our group and talking with John and talking with Auston throughout this process, it was the right time. to make this official, and we're happy, and I thought it's a great day, and now we move forward.
You've spoken here about, the symbols that you've picked up on, the things that you've seen behind the curtain. Obviously, you had these conversations with John, and then John revealed today that he was the one that actually called Auston and said, hey, this is the way it's going to go. And Auston said he had chills and he's excited for it. But at any point over the previous 12 months since you've been working with Auston, or even prior to you showing up, are you aware of him giving off any indication that this was something that he wanted? Like, was this something that he wanted the opportunity at some point to be the captain of the Maple Leafs?
Well, you know what, Brian? I wouldn't say he came and sat in my office and said, "Look, I want to be the captain." I think he's such a respectful person that that's not anything he would do, and possibly show that there's stepping on John's toes, but. Part of this process as you go through it is when you have that conversation and say, hey, here's what we're thinking. At that time, he really embraced it. Like he said, yeah, I'm ready and I want this. It's not symbolic. It's not just, okay, I'll put a letter on my jersey. He understood the responsibility, and in the most respectful way, and you guys have gotten to know Auston. He's a very respectful young man. He wanted to make sure John was okay with this, and wanted to make sure that that this was something that John's comfortable with, but he really embraced it, and feels he's ready to take that step. He's ready for that responsibility. He's ready for the things that go along with it, and this is a process, right? We all sometimes get sick of that word, but it truly is. And he's not on this island by himself. He's surrounded, by a lot of guys that are all sorts of different leaders in their own right, and I think the fact that John, like, to me, John showed the type of leader he was, probably in such a spectacular way today by passing this on. And it wasn't, John wasn't going kicking and screaming or us dragging him to this decision. He understood it, and he was fully on board. And I think that's just only going to help. And like I said, John's not going to change, and he's still going to lead in his way. But I think he's going to be a great voice for Auston. But as we went through this process, Auston not only was ready, but really accepting and wanting the responsibility.
Tree, was important. I think Bryan and I were talking in the 4:00 hour. I think everything today was perfect. The way John Tavares handled himself, the way Auston handled himself. We had Mark Masters on earlier, and he said, everybody in the room it was a momentous occasion. Like, it was very positive. Did you guys have to think about the timing of announcing this? Because, if you announce it and maybe John comes maybe a little premature at the end of the season, then it looks in a negative light instead of him saying, it's time. We're giving the best player, one of the best players on the planet, an opportunity here to be the captain of a storied franchise. Like, it seems like the timing is perfect to lead up to the season. Was that given a lot of thought? Was it just something that you guys had to come up with to lead into the season?
Yeah, you know what, Noodles? It a little bit of both. Like, we started the process after the season ended, and John and I had a conversation that led into more conversations, and as we were going down this path, I thought the timing was important, right? Quite frankly, we didn't want to, we wanted to get this done far enough away from camp that it can stand on its own, and once we get to camp, it's time to get to business, right? It's time we got work to get done. So there was a process that we, as we went through it and had these discussions and made this determination. Then there's it takes a little bit of time to put it all together and pick the date and all that sort of stuff. But to your first point, listen, we've all been around, and sometimes there's things that are done, and everybody's putting on a brave face. This was truly, the passing of the torch, which both men were very comfortable with. And listen, John's a proud man, and I've got a lot of respect for him, how he goes about his business and the way he goes about his work and how dialed in he is in his preparation. And, but he's a smart guy. And I can tell you, it was, we were joking, it's like a peaceful transfer of power. And it truly was. But, the biggest thing as we were going through this was you have to give it the proper time to go through it properly, which we did. And then, some people are saying, well, why in the middle of the summer you're doing this stuff? We wanted it once you've made the decision, once everybody's, comfortable. We wanted it outside of a camp because we just, let's deal with this now, and it'll be a story here for a little bit. And but once we get into camp, we get on with the business at hand, and not a lot. Excuse me, guys, is changing. Like this is, like I said, Auston's not waking up to be a different person tomorrow, nor is John. Like I said, John's a big part of our leadership group. He's going to continue to be. But I think this allows us to take care of this piece of business here today, and allows us, to continue starting tomorrow again, back to preparations for training camp in the season.
But Brad Treliving, Maple Leafs GM here on OverDrive, and in terms of when camp, arrives, and it is rapidly approaching, Craig Berube will make his presence felt. There's been a number of changes, obviously, that you've made, but the core four forwards appear to be returning. Morgan Rielly, will be returning. Those are your 5 longest-standing players, highest-paid players. It would appear as if, you guys are going back to the well with that core again for another season this year. Can you take us through, why you've concluded that's the right play and why you think it will work for you guys this year in terms of pursuing more playoff success and hopefully a Stanley Cup?
Well, Brian, not only at the end of each year, but every day, the job is how do you make your team better? And we look at that from the day our season ended till today, and we'll continue to look at that tomorrow. To me, we've still got, we've got 5 weeks or so till camp, and, we're not set yet. We continue to look at ways to make our team better. And I said at the end of the day, at the end of the year, we're going to look at everything. And, I know sometimes people fall in love with, let's make a big change just to make a big change. At the end of the day, you can go out and make big changes. If they're not making your team better, to me, it doesn't make any sense to just make a change, to stand up and say, look, we made this big change. So we just approach it. We've made changes to our team. We'll continue to look at ways that we can improve ourselves. We've there's been change to the coaching staff. There's been change in player personnel. We've tried to address some areas on our defense. We continue to look at that. I think we've added more depth to the organization. We've got an infusion of young players that, a year ago at this time, Matthew Knies is coming off, just a couple of regular season games in a playoff series. He's got a year under his belt. Bobby McLennan probably wasn't really talked about. He didn't even start on the roster with our team. The Holmbergs, we've got young players, I think, for the first time in a long time that are pushing to get in our lineup. So those are all things that I think there has been change to our team. But I certainly am not going to just, make a change for the sake of saying we've made a change if it's not making our team better. And that's the job that we'll continue to hammer away at today, tomorrow, and every day leading up to camp and throughout the season is how do we keep pushing this team forward? I think, ultimately the proof will be in the pudding. We'll get into camp and we'll see, we've got right now we've got a group of players. We've got to make it into a team starting in camp. Craig and his staff have been working hard, since it was assembled here. They've got a plan in place. And like I said, we'll continue to bang away to see if there's areas that we can add and continue to make the group as good as we possibly can. And that job's not going to stop.
Yeah, Tree, you've made some changes. Do you think maybe the most significant change as far as impact will be Craig Berube behind the bench? Just a different voice of, this core has been with the same guy, and Sheldon did a great job, but sometimes just a different voice, a different tactic can have a different result or a different thought process. Is that, something that when you made the change that you wanted to bring to the table, and we'll see how that works out the way that Craig attacks things?
For sure. I think that he's going to have a big impact, but I don't look at it as just one change. Like, to me, making a coaching change and say, okay, look at, we've made a coaching change and, that's going to fix all. To me, every once in a while you try to hit a home run, but the reality is in whether it be our business or any other business, you just keep trying to hit some singles, right? Hit some singles, keep picking away at different things to alter the group, to again push it forward. And I think, I've been on record as saying I think Sheldon did a really good job last year. I had 1 year with him. I think he's a tremendous coach, and I think he's going to, do good things in his career in Jersey and throughout his career. I just, it was just time. It was time that there was a change made, and that's sometimes the cruel part of this business. Craig's going to come in with a different flavor, a different message, a different style, and I think the group's ready for that. And but it's not just we've made a coaching change. That's enough. We've got to, it's each individual player digging in a little bit more, and those those margins, those percentages individually of getting better add up to hopefully a collective group being better. But it's up to the manager to continue to work on the roster. So I think Craig's going to have a real good impact, but and as well as the rest of the coaching staff, adding Lane, adding Savvy, there's a real, you can just see it in the time they've been together. There's a real chemistry with the coaching staff. But it's not just saying, okay, we've made a change behind the bench. That's the fix-all, right? That's one of them. Then it gets into player personnel, then it gets into style of play, then it gets into, each individual, the dig-in that we're going to need. So I think it's as much as Craig is going to have an impact here, it's one piece of a lot of pieces that we got to just continue to improve.
And when you're looking at that improvement, I'm assuming we're talking about playoff success. Correct me if I'm wrong, but, the regular season has not been an issue for this organization for a long, long time. Like, it's effectively been written in stone as of October 1st. We'll see you in April. You're going to make it. And I understand it's a long journey and it's a grind and you can't take teams lightly and the schedule lightly and anything can happen. And if you, get complacent, that's when sports and life will kick you in the ass. But it's very acute with your team in terms of the way your fan base consistently talks about it. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, Brad. It's, how do you get over the hump in the playoffs? Is that like what are you hyper focused on that? Like, take us through your thought process in terms of, everything you did throughout the summer, who returns, who doesn't, why Craig's here, his new staff, et cetera. Is it like hyper focused on playoff success, or is it deeper than that? Is it a wider scope than that?
Well, sure, Brian, it's for everybody, right? Ultimately, that's the goal, right? That's the ultimate goal, and we all know what we're here for is to have that playoff success. But you can't fast forward to April. And I know this team's had a lot of regular season success over the last few years, but over that period of time, just look at the division, right? Mm-hmm. Go back the last 4, 5, 6 years. There was a rebuilding team in Montreal, a rebuilding team in Buffalo, a rebuilding team in Ottawa. Those teams are maturing right now, right? You had a team 6, 7 years ago in Florida that was going through a reboot. They're the Stanley Cup champions now. So to sit here and say in the middle of August, we're going to take everything for granted and just worry about mid-April, you can't do that. And I know it sounds motherhoodish, but you got to earn your way into the playoffs. And just focusing, saying, I've got to have playoff success. Well, what gives you playoff success? What gives you playoff success is, first of all, you got to earn your way there. Second of all, it's what you do starting in day one in camp, the standards and the habits that you create in your organization that allow you don't just get to April 15th or 16th when the playoffs are and say, okay, here's what we're here for. Now we start doing it right. Those things are embedded in the organization from day one in camp. From the off season, how you train, how you prepare. So those are the things that we're focused on. I know in the outside world, and rightly so, our fans should be demanding that this team have playoff success. And that, trust me, that we are focused on that. But you got to get there first. And we're in a division, like I said, that over the last number of years, those teams have been, the Detroits of the world, the Ottawas, the Buffaloes, the Montreals, Tampa's not going anywhere. Florida just come off a Stanley Cup championship. So we know that we've got a hard task in front of us. But to me, I'll go back to the word, you have to be process focused. You can't, if I get into a game, we got to go win the game tonight. Mm-hmm. Well, when you get results focused, you lose focus on what gives you the result, right? So what gives you the result is, what are you doing between the end of the season, over the course of the summer to prepare for the season? What are you doing in terms of your training? What are you doing in terms of getting yourself individually better? Then you get together as a group, and how are we going to be committed to being a really good team? And you have to commit to that process daily. And that's, you do enough little things right, you eventually, the process and the results will take care of themselves. So I know it sounds like a motherhood answer or a motherhood statement, but ultimately, yes, our focus is, we know what the prize that we're focused on. Mm-hmm. But you can't sit here and worry about that in August right now. You have to do all the things that you possibly can that are within your control to prepare yourself to be ready to go on that voyage. And there's a lot of potholes along the way of health and performance and all those types of things. So that's what we're focused on. And we know what the expectation is of our fan base. I'm acutely aware of that, but we've got to dig in and worry about what we can control. And that is right now all of us preparing ourselves the last 5 weeks to get ready and get to work starting day one in training camp.
Yeah, that 5 weeks, it's going to fly. Yeah, you wouldn't know it based on the weather in Toronto today, but that hockey weather's coming. The hockey season's coming. It's coming, and we're looking forward to it. We appreciate you doing this. I know it's a busy week, busy day, and I'm sure we'll catch up again in camp. Thank you, Brad.
You bet. Enjoy the rest of the summer, boys. We'll see you soon.
You got it. There's Brad Treliving, the GM of the Leafs, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota, and check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. All right. Well, I wanted to ask him, is Yanni Hakanpää a Leaf? I know he addressed it during his little presser today. They're still working that out. But remember, it broke, Yanni Hakanpää is signing a 2-year deal, and then he just never signed officially. And I think they're still trying to work that out. But
I thought he was on. I thought he's listed on the. I thought he was listed on Daily Faceoff and all those websites. He's not anymore. I gotta check that.
I don't know what's going on.
I just kind of assumed.
Hakanpää. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to ask him.
Holding out for extra? No, this is
it's more.
Day.
There's other stuff to get into, like bigger core issues with the team than to talk about Yanni Hakanpää. But I think the knee's banged up. I think it's more of a physical thing. Trying to figure out what's going on with the knee and maybe trying to figure out. That's my understanding. We'll get those answers at camp. If Yanni's not there, there's your answer. If he is, then it's all good. But so there you go. Auston Matthews, the new captain, and Craig Berube's in here, and they've made changes, and the core is going to be the core, but they're all ready to go and chomping at the bit, and it's once you drop the puck, it's going to be a fun season all around. It'll be great to have the NHL back, the Leafs back playing. I think they're going to be a really good team during the regular season. I expect to get back to the playoffs, and we'll see what they've got when we get there.
Yeah, there will be storylines and question marks right from the drop of the puck. And here's the other thing, too, that'll be different, is keep in mind the way, like Sheldon Keefe doesn't get enough credit for how he handled the day-to-day. Like, he was out there every day talking. Craig Berube is not the most vocal guy in the media. Like, he's coming from St. Louis. He knows the Canadian media. He knows the expectation. But that's an adjustment, too. There will be a learning curve for Craig because he's not a guy that's just going to, Mike Babcock enjoyed the camera. I think Sheldon Keefe understood the responsibility and embraced it. That doesn't mean that Craig Berube's stepping right in and going, hey, I've got 20 minutes for you today. It might be short and sweet, and people go, hey, what are we doing here? Like, keep in mind, this is a different personality that we're going to be dealing with, too. So there's a lot of things that come with some of the changes that Brad Treliving has made. You got a new backup goaltender. Is Joseph Woll going to be your guy, or is it going to be a tandem situation? You just mentioned, I assume that Hakanpää, there will be storylines.
Oliver Ekman-Larsson.
Right.
Mitch will be here. Mitch is going to be, like you said, I think he's going to have a great season. I expect he will. I think, Willie, how does he act? How does he react now? Willie, going into year one of an 8-year deal, he's going to get paid $11.5 million. He's one of the 10 highest paid players in the league.
I saw that.
Like, he better be ready to rock, man. I said it yesterday, like, the core four is returning. They're more expensive than they ever have been. Willie's making more. Austin's making more. There's a lot of pressure on these guys. Year 7 of the core four. They got to get it cooking, man. They've won one playoff round. They know that. We know that. Brad knows that.
Yeah.
So, but you got to, like you said, you can't fast forward through 82 games, and the division's really tough, and the conference is tough, and there's a lot of good teams, and you got to grind. You got to find your roots.
Exactly.
All right. Noodles, good seeing you, buddy. We got Frankie Corrado coming in here. Frankie wants to get in on the act. We love that.
Subbing in. I love it.
Yeah, a little sub, a midsummer sub.
I have a response. Like, I've got a family member. My mom's flying in. I got to pick her up. Or else I'd have been here yelling and screaming because I didn't even get into my Oiler takes yet.
I know. This is what happened yesterday. We ended up talking about this, and then I know the Oilers stuff. I don't know. Do you think they're going to match both?
I think they're matching one for sure, but this is not happening if Ken Holland's still the manager.
Totally
I'm telling
agree.
you that right now because him and Doug Armstrong are friends. There's a respect there.
Yeah.
And Ken leaves, and it's almost like, you know what, the new guy, Stan Bowman, let's see what can happen here. And there's also rumblings out there that Holland was trying to extend these guys and maybe wasn't allowed or whatever. Bottom line is they've got to make some decisions. Both are good young players. Broberg is, they're both drafted and developed. They're both high picks, but Broberg played during the playoffs. They pushed through. They let Desharnais go. And that's a defensive core that is, I think, is solid, but average at best. They're not at the top tier.
I agree.
So, missing a young player, they might have to use that draft pick to replace him. I like Holloway too, because he's got speed. The other thing too is Edmonton getting Arvidsson. He's older and not as fast, right? So,
right.
But he's a hell of a player he's a bastard to play against as far as physical. So, Jeff Skinner can skate, but I look at it, you need young youth infused. Ryan McLeod, Broberg, and potentially Holloway out. You got to be careful with that.
It's a gamble they're taking. They got to figure it out. And if you match it, you're way over the cap. And then you really got to get creative, right? You really, really, like Stan Bowman's got a job to do. Jeff Jackson's like, see you later.
Yeah,
I'm out of here. I'm the president again. Where are those season ticket holders? I got to go meet them for dinner tonight. I'm not dealing with this.
Yeah.
All right, Noodles. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Chat soon.
There he is, Jamie Noodles McLennan. Frankie Corrado on this and more still to come will join us around the table. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, so the theme in the city today is the passing of the baton, and John Tavares passing the C over to Auston Matthews, and now Jamie Noodles McLennan passing the baton over to Frankie Corrado for the rest of the show. So I guess you're
buddy?
like,
how we doing?
How you doing, man? I guess you're like Auston in this particular case, right? Like Noodles is Tavares and he's out.
Yeah, I don't think that's a great comparison, but I'm happy to fill in for the last hour and a half. We're short bodies, Gordon. We're just we're doing it, man. We're getting
really
by.
Doing
What's
it
today?
here.
Was
We're
it
really doing
Was
it.
it Wednesday? Is this a Wednesday? I have no idea.
It's a Wednesday,
Okay.
August 14th. I appreciate you doing it, and we had Treliving join us. Listen, they're excited for this. It's going to be all good. It's funny, like these hockey announcements that kind of came out of nowhere that the Leafs, are obviously doing what they did. And that's more of a ceremonial thing, and Matthews being prepared for it, and him taking it on, and Tavares' role and all that. Yet the offer sheets, that's a totally different story. Like, that's a lot deeper, and that's a lot spicier. And Noodles just said it to wrap up, before he left. He's like, if Ken Holland was still the GM there, there's no way St. Louis would do this. And that speaks to the gentleman's agreement stuff. Doug Armstrong wouldn't do it to Ken Holland because they're friends.
They're golf buddies.
They're golf buddies, exactly. But he'll do it to Stan Bowman and Jeff Jackson because he doesn't care about them.
Welcome back to the league. Welcome back. You left yourself vulnerable, man. Like, that's St. Louis just exploiting that. And, you and I talked about it yesterday. We did the Sports Center hit. We got all into it. And, there's the gentleman's agreement for sure. There's also the fact that, teams have been strapped up against the cap. So who's got that much money to go out and pay Philip Broberg, who played the majority of the year in the American Hockey League, and you're going to give him $4.6 million? Not a lot of teams can go out and do that, Hayes. But I guess St. Louis saw a little, a situation they're going to try and exploit. But, it's a little bit of a gamble, is it not?
Absolutely.
You're basically saying that guy's better than Rasmus Sandin, Timothy Liljegren, all these guys that have been established NHL players that have played top 4 minutes. You're basically saying this guy's better, but he played 50 games in the AHL last year.
It's a big gamble for St. Louis. And that side of it doesn't come up enough because of the shock value of the RFA offer sheets that generally don't happen in the NHL. And there's only been a couple that have actually been successful. Dustin Penner and Kotkaniemi, where the team said, fine, take him. We'll take the picks. We're moving on. So even when it has happened and it's been a rarity, generally the teams do match. And maybe that will happen with Edmonton. But you're right. Generally what ends up happening is we talk about the cap. We talk about the relationship between the two teams. How vindictive will Edmonton be? And I don't think we discuss enough whether or not it actually is a smart play, for the team issuing the RFA. And I love this kind of creativity. I'd like to see it more in the NHL. I've always been confused and a little bit flummoxed by why it hasn't happened before, and I'm not holding my breath that this will all of a sudden break the camel's back and we'll start seeing it more often. But I'm with you. The assessment of Broberg, it doesn't matter that he was a top 10 pick. That was 5 years ago. Yeah. He's 23 years old. That was 5 years ago. It's completely irrelevant where he was drafted. Completely irrelevant. What is relevant is the guy is not established himself as an everyday NHL player, and you're going to pay him that much money in a hard cap
give him
era.
That much money. Go ahead. And you know what? I saw, I think it was the Bar Down guys. They posted, all the offer sheets that have been tendered in the cap era and the ones that have been matched. And it's you want to throw Ryan Kessler coming off an entry level, $1.9 million. Of course, that's going to get matched. The ones that don't get matched are the ones that are like Kotkaniemi or Dustin Penner. And, nothing against those players. They're good players. And Penner was a good player. Kotkaniemi's a fine. He's not a $6 million guy, right? So now I think the Holloway one is a no-brainer. That one, 2.2, you can make that work. But $4.6 million for Broberg, I think that's where you're kind of hung up here on how do you keep this guy, because it's a shame. It's a shame that you draft the guy and you're going to lose a young prospect, and yes, you're going to get a pick, but I just heard Noodles as he was walking off. He's like, you do need to kind of have some youth coming up the pipe if you're a team that's contending for a championship. So it's a shame is what it is.
Yeah, it stinks. It sucks. And maybe they match it. And obviously you want to keep these guys, clearly. But what obviously has also become clear here is Edmonton, they were gambling. They were gambling that these guys would have no leverage and would just have to take whatever Edmonton was willing to give them. And the players decided that's not the way it's going to work. And they were free agents, restricted, but they were allowed to speak with any team, right? You can call any team you want. I'm sure their agents were on the phone. This has probably been in the back burner for quite some time. And it's mid-August. And these are two players in Broberg and Holloway that believe they're everyday NHL players. Right? They have to prove it. Now they're going to be paid like it, whether Edmonton matches and they stay there or they go to St. Louis. The expectations will rise now because you put yourself on the map, right? Being on a Cup finalist would do that anyway. Holloway played every single game. Broberg played, I think, 10 of the playoff games. He played pretty well when he went in there, but he was kind of the change of pace guy, right? Like, it wasn't working. Throw Broberg in. They're going to make a choice to mix it up on the back end, and he went in there. But now your name's on the map. Now everyone knows who you are. Now you're getting paid. Now you're the guys that signed the offer sheet and did something that a lot of players don't do. So you better step up. And obviously, in a perfect world, Edmonton keeps them. You keep them for cheap, but that's not a reality anymore. And they got to figure out how they're going to do this.
It's going to be difficult. You know, I saw maybe Evander Kane is going to have his surgery, so you got a little LTIR space there. But I'm pretty sure, Hayes, they would have to try and waive 3 players off that roster to make this work. And I think you're allowed to be 10% over the cap before like you break training camp. So like they could, but that's who are you talking about at that point? Is it a guy like Derek Ryan you got to put on waivers? Troy Stetcher, who's a depth defenseman? It's like you're kind of depleting your roster at that point just to keep these guys who, let's call it for what it is. If Broberg doesn't play on your team next year, if Holloway doesn't play on your team next year, are we talking about the Edmonton Oilers as not Stanley Cup contenders anymore?
Of course not.
They're still Stanley Cup contenders. They're probably still the favorites. It's a shot to the future for the team. Yeah. And I took a look into the projected contracts of what these guys are. Like there's the analytics companies who have the models, and you kind of see what the contract projections would have been for Broberg. It's like $875K for Holloway. It's like just over $1 million. It's $1.1 million. So St. Louis is like they're upshooting it with these guys quite significantly.
Yeah, and they're right up against the dollar amount that would have pushed the compensation even higher. Again, not a coincidence, right? You make it as expensive as you can based on the dollar amount in the cap hit without having to pay the price if Edmonton decides to let them walk. And Broberg, you get a second-round pick. Holloway, you get a third. It's not ideal. In retrospect, maybe if you had a crystal ball, you would have traded them, and maybe you get more than this. Like if you felt like you were going to lose them anyway, right? Because what sucks for Edmonton is you've lost control. You have 2 options now. You match or you take the pick. Like you can't call another team and shop it. You can't say, hey, well, we got another option here. You can't match it and trade them. That's not allowed. Like if you match it, they're playing for you. So it's complicated, man. It is complicated. It is a grenade that was thrown in the middle of August. And I'm curious what they do because they got 6 days to figure this out. I would guess they'll wait until the last minute because they're going to take their time to call around the league and figure out how they can relieve themselves of some cap issues. And to your point, if you're just going to unload players, like the guy that comes up all the time in Edmonton is Cody Ceci. Ceci is not perfect. He's not a great player, and he's got a decently high cap hit. He still played basically every night for Edmonton. They have some faith in him. They had more faith in him last year than they did Broberg. Maybe that changes this year. Maybe Broberg will surpass him and be better. That was not the case at any point last year or in the Cup final. And if they wanted to move off CC, they would have done it by now. So
they would have had plenty of opportunity to. And really what it is, it's a shot to the future. Like this doesn't change their standings as far as being a Stanley Cup contender. It just, it can handicap them a little bit when they're trying to turn over their roster from the guys they have to whatever their future pieces are going to be. And these guys would have been in those plans.
Yep. All right. More on that still to come. Jerry's will be happening. Jerry's sending an emailed hot takes around 6:20. We'll get to that. Steve Phillips on Will Wagner. Is this for real? Like, what's up with Will Wagner? Is he the real deal here with the Blue Jays? Is he going to be a part of their future? He looked great again last night. So that more still to come with Steve. Frankie Corrado's in here on Bryan Hayes. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, so NFL camps are, running wild, and we're getting real close to go time in the NFL, man. Forget the NHL. The NHL is still like a month and a half away from starting. The NFL starts 2 weeks tomorrow? I think it might be 2 weeks tomorrow or 3 weeks tomorrow. I think it is 3 weeks tomorrow on Thursday night. Ravens Chiefs. What a great way to start the season too. I
love that, man.
Epic,
that is just smash mouth football in your face. Like it's going to be unbelievable. Great way to start.
So good. I actually looked that up on FanDuel, Owen. I want to know what the spread is. Guessing the Chiefs would be favored by what, 3.5, maybe somewhere between 2.5 and 3.5 would be my guess. But the Ravens are, they're loaded too, right? And you got Lamar and you got Mahomes. It's just an incredible scene to start the year.
You got that defense too. Like it's a stout team.
So good.
It's a very well-rounded team.
Yes.
I don't know. I feel like the Ravens don't come up enough when we're talking about teams that can contend to win a Super Bowl. Or maybe they do.
I don't know.
But I just feel like we don't. We don't talk about
top seed in the FC last year. It's more so because with Lamar and his playoff history, he's 2-4 lifetime in the playoffs, and he just doesn't get it done. So it's also with the AFC, you cannot get away from talking about Mahomes. Like it feels like you're wasting your time talking about any other quarterback or any other team.
It's funny, though, because we talk about Dak Prescott all the time for not being able to get it done in the playoffs, and probably because it's Dallas and it's the Cowboys, but we don't really talk about Lamar. Why is that? Just because he plays in Baltimore? Like, it's the same kind of theme for both those guys.
Yeah, probably. Maybe because he's won a couple of MVPs. You know, Dak hasn't done that, although he was in contention last year. It's a good question. Chiefs are -3 on FanDuel opening night. Yeah, that seems right. Seems about right. I figured somewhere between 2.5 and 3.5. I wonder where that number will end up come kickoff. I love that we're
already thinking about your pick.
Yeah, I'm thinking about my pick. It's tough, man. Opening night when the banner goes down. You know, I generally lean the road team, less distractions. Take the points. But why would you start your season betting against Mahomes? You know what I mean? Like, forget all the analysis and the breakdown. Like, why do that to yourself? As a gambler, why even think about betting against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid at home to start your season? Even if they lose, they get blown out. Why do that?
That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
That's literally all the rationale you need to have.
Okay.
Like, you could get into all the micro stats, and this guy had a camp, and this guy's a little bit banged up. Like, you just said exactly what you need to know for that game for betting purposes.
There you go. I gave you my answer. It's Chiefs -3. I'm not changing. I will not listen to Al's brother either because I can already hear him in my ear. Tremendous information about Baltimore's road stats to start a season. You know, I know what's coming. Their offensive line in week 1 on the road is this. Okay, Al's brother. Fine, we'll take the points. Blowout. Chiefs win by 30. Good way to start your season. All right, we'll play the Aaron Rodgers clip, though. What he compared going to Egypt to. We'll play that in the next hour. Jerry's coming up. Steve Phillips, Frankie's in here. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.